Yes!
Woo!
It is us again!
Oh, fresh off another week.
Fresh off of seeing Godzilla on the big screen. I'm stoked.
It was good.
It was damn good. I'm sporting my, I'm Gonzo Mike. I got my, my Rugrats Godzilla shirt on. Look at that. Very tasty. Ugh.
And in honor of this one, I'm thinking I might put the mask back on.
Uh-oh. Wait, I don't have the drums. Do you have the drums?
Wait a second. Let's do that again. I'm going to put this back on.
Yes!
Roar.
And in honor of this, I am yet once again going to crack open a Monster Energy drink. And I'm going to be taking a hiatus from Monster Energy drink after this series. Too much, really. Heart palpitations, can I admit that? Sure.
Yes, sure.
But also in celebration of that, I'm killing this bottle. Ooh, only the finest that Russians could provide. Yeah, a little Monster Energy drink and vodka. Why not? You know. After seeing the movie, I am ready. I am stoked. Although, it was we got a lot to talk about. Wouldn't you say so?
I would agree. There's much to be said, but first and foremost, it was good.
Yeah. So, where did you? Now, Tim and I both saw it. Now, unfortunately, we did not see it together, which was kind of a shame. It really was. But part of that was because I'm way out in Austin, and Tim's in the heartland in Wichita. So we could not see it together.
Nope. We both saw it respectively in nice movie theaters in our territories. I saw it in IMAX 3D. And
I only saw it in 3D. I did not see it in IMAX.
Yeah, so my Godzilla was a few feet taller, probably.
He was a baller.
Wish he was taller.
He had a good, yeah.
If he had a girl, he'd call her. You know.
No, you're telling me earlier something about the theater as well, right?
Which aspect? The fact that they made some poor high schooler put on Godzilla like Halloween costume and hand out the 3D glasses?
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, they did. So when you went in to go to the movie over the weekend, if you went to the 3D IMAX, they had one of their poor teenage workers in a Godzilla like zip up sponge costume handing out the 3D glasses.
Wow, that is crazy.
He wasn't quite dancing around. He didn't seem real stoked about it.
That's like any goofy guy in a suit, like especially during the summer, standing out in the middle of the street holding a sign to hope people get attention.
Well, at the very least, he was inside an air-conditioned theater, so it wasn't bad.
Does that even work? Like people dressed up funny? Does that actually get business, or is it just something to put?
It was just something they did to be cute. Like it said, "Come see it this weekend and meet Godzilla." And I contemplated taking a picture of him, but I didn't. So
that's probably a good thing.
I didn't want to give him a big ego. And the other thing I noticed...
A Godzilla-sized ego.
I wasn't going to monster-size his ego. But I went to this movie, and in Wichita, the population... there's a lot of Russian background people, German background people. There's a lot of Mexican people. And there's a lot of... There's a huge Vietnamese population and Laotian population. So I'm not unaccustomed to seeing Asian people in Wichita. What I am unaccustomed to is seeing Japanese people. And having watched 29 Godzilla movies, I do know like the actual like physical characteristics that would say this person's Japanese versus Laotian or Vietnamese, and
Chinese or even
Chinese.
Hawaiian.
There's a difference, and I can tell now, and I can also tell because like every third person at this showing, it was 11:30 on a Sunday, or 12 Sunday, it was Japanese.
Was it Sunday night or Sunday morning?
It was Sunday. It was an early Sunday. For earliest showing they had on a Sunday, which was 12:30 in the afternoon.
Wow. Do you think they actually flew from Japan and watched the movie in Wichita?
No, I just think the 400 Japanese people that were there happened to be the 400 Japanese people who live in Wichita.
I wonder what the time zone difference between Japan and Wichita is. Maybe they did fly and it was there 11:30 at night.
I don't know, but it was a range of, you had dads there with their young kids, but they had Japanese.
That's awesome.
So I saw these Japanese guys with their little Japanese kids. I saw this guy who probably was in his 50s or 60s, and he was Japanese, and he was there with, I think he had an American wife. I didn't know that he wasn't American, but he was there with a Caucasian wife. But he looked like kind of an old, kind of heavy-set Japanese guy. But I was in the bathroom, and I think everybody, like every other person was a Japanese. There's like a Japanese kind of like punk, kind of goth kid, and then there's some other people, and there's a ton of Japanese people, and this was like the biggest theater they have in Wichita. It was sold out at 12:30 on a Sunday. Every seat in this IMAX theater was sold out, and there's a lot of Japanese people, a lot of dads there with their kids, both Caucasian looking and Japanese. A lot of some people like me who drugged their poor wife with them to it. Which a note at the end, they said wife said, "I really like that."
That's
so
awesome.
they got the good crossover appeal. They satisfied me as a Godzilla fan, a fairly like kind of, I'd say somewhat new Godzilla fan. I always liked Godzilla, but I really like Godzilla now. And they got her, and she's kind of like, "Oh, it's Godzilla. I'll do you a favor."
You now invested maybe 50 hours of your life into Godzilla movies. You kind of are in it now.
I have an affection for the lizard.
Yes.
So, I wanted to see it done well. And after
the active kind too.
And I'm not, without going off on a tangent, 98 obviously has been talked about. It was terrible. And if it can be believed, this movie, while it was great, I enjoyed it, it makes me hate 98 so much more.
Oh, well,
I won't go any further than that. I'll just say I hated 98 before. I hate it more now. God, they pissed it away.
I'm going to let you stew on that, and I'm going to give the good folks...
I've been stewing on it since I saw the new one.
Yeah. I'm going to... While you're stewing on that, I'm going to tell the folks about my movie-going experience. I talked a couple people into going and also buying tickets, but I paid for my share. Me and my lovely wife and a couple other people went on the Thursday night showing. That was pretty much the first one available. It was 3D. It was not IMAX. And really, looking back on it, we'll talk about the movie, but just really quick, the 3D wasn't that intrusive. It really didn't matter whether or not there was 3D or not. So
you didn't have to. It was cool. It was nice, but it's mainly like cityscapes and stuff. So
Yeah. So
neat. I mean, you can't say it's not neat, but you don't have to see it in 3D.
Now the theater I saw it at was at the Alamo Drafthouse, like not the downtown Austin one, but another one. And they did not have somebody dressed up as Godzilla there, but they had a bar called 400 Rabbits, which specializes in tequila flights. Nice. So I got the smoked age flight, and I brought that into the theater, and I was enjoying that while watching the movie. So I think that evened it out pretty well.
That does. I might have traded the kid in the suit for some tequila.
Wow, I've seen some Law and Order SVU episodes start out that way. So yeah, I want to say that it was sold out but there wasn't that. I don't think the seats were full. I think it was close, but it wasn't like full.
You probably had some people bought advance tickets and just didn't make it.
Well, a couple people in our party showed up like right before the movie started, and Draft House is notorious for that kind of stuff, so they kind of got in on a limit. As soon as the movie starts, they won't let anybody in, which I think it's just kind of what they say at the front. I don't think they really enforce it too well, unless you're obviously that lame. But like, they showed up just in time for the movie, and yeah, what a movie as well. I did not see Japanese people. I did not see family there. I think I just saw a bunch of people there.
Well, I think it's partially the time I went. I went on a Sunday at 12:30. It's more family-friendly time.
Yeah, like if I had kids, I'd probably take kids to movies at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday outside of football season. But
it was I had a lot of kids in mine, and I'll say this. I should add this. The IMAX theater obviously is a big screen, so they have these big curtains over it. The theater chain here is real big on like trying to make every theater look like the old movie palaces thing. It's almost overdone to a point where you're kind of like, okay, we get it, so quit. But they have these big, huge curtains, and this is the first time I've ever seen this. We're going in to sit down, this huge theater, you got to go way up. On the curtain itself, they projected the Japanese symbols for Godzilla.
Oh, that's cool.
And they were playing the Godzilla story over top, instead of just playing shitty pop music like they do in a lot of movie theaters. They had the Godzilla emblem over top of the curtain, like with a light on it, and then they were playing the Godzilla thematic music.
And really, that's what it's all about.
A Sunday afternoon showing, you know. So I was like, all right, at least they're getting into it, and the place was packed. It was nuts.
Well, and that's what it's all about, and that really is like what inspired me. I mean, part of it was my childhood. Part of it's a little bit of yours. Part of it is there are some really terrible movies in this series, but also is such an icon of just movie making in general, and it was so unusual that it originated outside of the United States. It is very unique, both in the culture and also in the progression and evolution. So having something like the Godzilla symbol written in Japanese and the theme playing in the theater in Midwest America is something you would never expect to happen. But that's how far-reaching and culturally, dare I say, important Godzilla was and is still today. And I think that's the thing I came away from this movie is, and we'll get into the reviews here soon, next actually, but what I thought about this movie was I think it brought Godzilla back to being Godzilla, which is fantastic. That's the only thing I can hope for. So, I don't know, what did you think of the movie?
I thought maybe I'm on the wrong side of it for my affinity for it. They did everything I'd want them to do in this second attempt. Not their second attempt. Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin should get kicked in the balls, ruining it. And I may work on setting that up.
That almost sounds like the secondary title to this entire series.
Godzilla 2014. P.S. Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin should get kicked in the balls.
Yeah.
And most of the actors should get a slap in the face. So 2014, I think it might have been perfect for me. I thought it was perfect. I like the slow build. I'm giving some spoilers. I like the slow build. I think people who are bitching that it wasn't a 90-minute monster fight are missing the point. And they don't understand Godzilla. You don't get it. It's like those things that I don't really care for, but the people put the thing on the back of the Jeep and say it's a Jeep thing you wouldn't understand. It's like, it's a Godzilla thing you don't understand.
Yeah, so let's get in the reviews. So right.
Spoiler.
No. Well, let's talk about the reviews.
Oh, about the reviews. Okay.
And then we'll talk about what's happening next, and then we'll save the spoilers.
Okay.
For the end, just to give everybody some time to not watch. Although I don't know why you would.
Give us the synopsis on the reviews.
No, it was mixed. It was mixed reviews, and me personally, I don't think it was the best Godzilla movie. I think I was more influenced by Final Wars than anything else. I really liked Final Wars. So while this redeemed Godzilla for me, it's kind of hard to top not only the original, because of the human acting, and we'll get into that later, but also because Final Wars was just like they didn't have what they did in the human acting was just so crazy that it made up for any vapid explanation of their existence, like maybe you were used to seeing in a lot of the other Godzillas, like the oh man, the Shawa, the Heisei series had that common thread of Miku or Miki, that was the telekinetic kind of ESP lady that was able to communicate with Godzilla, and there's some empathy there, and it kind of like strung things along, and it tied all those movies together. However insane it was, but this movie, the humans were just kind of throwaway, which is to be expected in Godzilla movies, and I think that's why we got mixed reviews. There were people going into this movie thought it would be like a knockout brawl from end to end, but it wasn't. It wasn't Pacific Rim.
No, and if you've watched a lot of Godzilla movies, they're usually not knockout brawls from end to end.
No, as a matter of fact, the original Godzilla really didn't do anything until the last 20 minutes of the movie, and that we kind of like established while we watched a lot of these movies. While we were watching these movies, but Godzilla really doesn't do anything until the last third of the movie.
A lot of it's people walking, monsters on their way, and humans getting ready.
Actually, it's very reminiscent of another monster movie from
70s.
That I saw back at the video library days. I'm going to invoke this. And I remember renting it from the foreign movie section of video library, and it's called Daimajin, which is this trilogy of movies where it's definitely way more tragic than these Godzilla movies. But it involved a statue-like god in Japan feudal time that would come to life and pretty much murder a village. Each movie dealt with either a noble or a poor person being at the end of their rope to the fact where they'd be so persecuted, so dumped on, so troubled that they just gave their lives up to this god. And that would like trigger it, and this god would come to life, and it'd have the creepiest looking old style samurai like god face, and it would be like 30 feet tall, and it would just roll through a feudal Japanese village or wherever and just kill everybody. But the payoff always was like the last 10 to 15 minutes of the movie, and that's a lot like what these Godzilla movies were. It's a lot of the humans doing stuff. Maybe some great threat coming, and then at the last second, you pay your penance and Godzilla shows up, or Godzilla is the bad person, and either Mothra or somebody else, or like the Super X2 has to come in and like take out this thing. So it for people who haven't seen Godzilla movies, and the expectation coming in of you need to fight at the beginning. Yeah, that's not a Godzilla movie, and that's why I said it was a Godzilla movie, which ultimately made it way better than the '98 American movie.
The '98 American movie is not a Godzilla movie. The '98 American movie is what I like to call a piece of shit. It's not a good film.
Very articulate, by the way.
It's not a good film in general, and it craps all over the legacy of Godzilla. So there's all kinds of problems. We're not going down that road again. But I would compare well, I'm not sure if this is fair. It'd be like saying I didn't like Jaws because the shark wasn't eating people for the whole movie.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing in these reviews, right? Everyone took enough care and time to evoke. Actually, no, they didn't. There were some lazy movie reviews.
Oh, there's some real lazy movie reviews.
And they evoked Steven Spielberg like everybody else. It's like, all right, Gareth Edwards is being
like Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I get it. It's a slow build-up. I think, though, with the way that Gareth Edwards built it up was different. than what Spielberg did. But it was definitely there was a little bit of homage, but these movie reviewers were lazy in referencing Spielberg the whole time.
Well, because one time Gareth Edwards said he likes Steven Spielberg movies, so therefore.
Now, Gareth Edwards, of course, did Monsters, which was a very low budget, made for $500,000.
Actually.
Yeah, it was a great movie, but it was also like a love story. It wasn't like...
It was very slow, too. Very slow.
Yeah, and the special effects he all did on his laptop for the Monsters. So it was very low budget, and he did a lot with it, which is really cool. But it wasn't like a super mega $1 million blockbuster like this thing. That was what was cool about what he did with that and how he translated it over to this. But back to the reviews. So I didn't think it was the best Godzilla movie ever. No, it's up there though. The redemption is really good. The fight scenes were awesome.
Badass.
Yeah. How would you rate? Like, now we went through all 10 weeks worth.
I have to think if I'm trying to think if maybe the 1954 one isn't. I really like the 1954 one a lot.
It was the most serious of all of these.
And I liked the story in that one. I thought it was phenomenal. The special effects in it are just freaking phenomenal for 1954. I like that one. I think this is. I'm not sure if it. When I say it's perfect, it's the perfect way to do this movie right now. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. I would probably go see it again. I don't know if I'd fork over the extra money for IMAX.
I might go see it again.
Just so you know.
I might go see it again in 2D only because when I went to the movie in 3D, I had glasses. I wasn't wearing my contacts, so I had glasses and 3D glasses on top of it, and it was kind of annoying actually.
I'm actually used to that, but it does push on your ears. It gets uncomfortable sometimes. I would see it in 2D. You don't need to. I just enjoyed it as a movie. Great popcorn movie. Just a good Godzilla movie. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I went into it knowing I would like it, but I loved it. It's got. Not that recordable media is any good anymore these days, but when I buy a Blu-ray disc, this might be the first Blu-ray disc I buy.
Wow, that is saying a lot.
It's going to be right there, like 1A and 1B with like Star Wars or Godzilla. So.
Or 2000? Nah, not 2001. You gotta do later movies.
I would buy Gravity and Blu-ray. Gravity was pretty.
Yeah, I ascribe to get the media that the physical representation was intended for.
Yep.
So, like, let's say Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers, I want to get the vinyl record that has the zipper on it. But for, say, Radiohead's OK Computer, I want to get the compact disc for it. So, like...
I prefer the old Star Wars VHS tapes.
I have, this continued from last episode, we're leaning heavy into Star Wars all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's the next thing that's got up my geek butt, so...
So, I have the original trilogy. The only time it ever came out on VHS, I have the original trilogy box set. It was all 3 VHS tapes, without the special edition, when Han shoots first, all that. So
yes, Fox set.
And it is beautiful, and that's what it needs to be. Just like Blu-ray now, I would get Godzilla on Blu-ray.
This will definitely be a Blu-ray purchase for me.
But you lose so much when you try to upconvert in terms of fidelity, and that's why like vinyl records are great when they're like vinyl records. Like if I wanted to listen to Heartbeat by Don Johnson, I'd listen to it on cassette tape. Yes. So there's whatever medium it was maximized for and truly intended for is the medium I want to watch it on. Short of those stupid cone things for music, those little. That's too old. And to hell with microfiche. Anyway.
It's durable, says me.
So.
I'm talking to a guy who owns a Laserdisc player, so.
Laser karaoke too.
That's the primary reason I own it.
Yes, that's right.
And that's a weird animation set. So.
So a lot of these mixed reviews, I think, came from people who haven't seen a Godzilla movie before,
Maybe they've only seen the like 60s, 70s goofy ones where it's like,
or what they inevitably get fallen into is the trap where the only clips from these movies they see are Godzilla fighting. So the expectation is that's what happens wall to wall, and that's not what happened.
oh, it's gonna. I've heard, and some people I even heard like, why they even make this? Pacific Rim already came out. They don't need to make Godzilla. It's like yes.
And with those reviews, there are comments, and I went to Ain't It Cool, comingsoon.net. RogerEbert.com had probably a really good review. At least gave a really great review. Gave the movie a really great review. All these different review sites and all the commenters instantly compared it to Pacific Rim, but then would also complain about the pacing of the movie, which I think just attributes more to the fact that they haven't seen a Godzilla movie before. Now, if we wanted to compare it with Pacific Rim, I hated the human characters. I really hated them. In Godzilla, they didn't really get in the way as much, which is what a monster movie should be. Like, they didn't get in the way here. But in Pacific Rim, they were just kind of annoying. That said, there's a lot more like monster fighting. It was kind of more sports fighting in Pacific Rim than anything else. But yeah, you get the comparisons between Pacific Rim and Godzilla.
Two different things.
Yeah, I enjoyed both thoroughly. I say the more the merrier.
That's fine. I can deal with giant things, but to say one, Godzilla is its own thing. Its own thing.
Yeah. So that said, with all the mixed reviews, there's a common score. I forgot the website, but it gave it a B plus, which makes sense. I think.
I saw 79% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is actually pretty good for that site.
Yeah, and so I mean, what you'd expect is what Gonzo Tim was talking about with bring your kids to it because your kids are gonna love it. It's gonna be awesome, and if you can suspend your disbelief or if you can not be butthurt about what happened to the human characters, then you can have a good time as well. And for the real hardcore Godzilla fans, it's redemption. It brings it home. It really does.
And it makes you hate what they did to '98 Godzilla. It just makes you hate that. If you do loathe that movie, you will loathe it more because you're like, you had a golden opportunity in your hand, and you pissed it away. And I'll because how did this do at the box office?
Well, that's next, right?
Yes.
It made $93 million domestically. Across the world, it made $200 million in its opening weekend.
And
it exceeded expectations. Box Office Mojo had a forecast of about $73 million. It ended up beating that by 20. Also, it had the second greatest. It had the greatest opening for a non-sequel ever. And it ended up being in between Spider-Man and Captain America 2 for the greatest opening weekend ever, or opening Thursday or Friday ever.
And they just count that as the weekend. They also had the biggest IMAX opening for the year.
Yeah.
It's a lesser title, but still it's important because IMAX tickets cost a bit more. So, you can go see it in 3D or you can see it in 3D IMAX. 3D IMAX costs you like $14 a ticket.
Point is that if you really want a sequel, you don't have to worry about getting a really expensive ticket because there's a sequel in cahoots right now.
There's already a sequel going, and it hasn't even premiered in Japan yet.
And China. So that, I mean, just think about that.
You can say ka-ching in both of those places, probably.
And I'll also say that Pacific Rim made most of its money overseas in that direction as well, too. So whereas it might have flopped a little bit in America, it made up for it. And I don't know if there's going to be a sequel for that, but I don't care because there's going to be a sequel for Godzilla.
Actually, I think there is going to be a sequel for Pacific Rim.
So, that said, I guess we should probably talk about spoilers then.
All right, spoiler time. Turn it off.
Should I put something up that says spoilers?
Spoiler
Wait, hold on. Let me do this. Because really, like, if you don't want to know about this movie, even though you should, I mean, you get what you expect. So we're gonna spoil it, but we're gonna warn you right now. From here on out, we're gonna be talking about the movie itself. So if you haven't seen it yet, and you don't want to be spoiled by it, and if you're one of the 4 people that watches Gonzo guys, might want to either just skip to the end. We're not gonna give you a time code or anything.
So John, go see this first.
All right, yeah, John, Rod, Bobby, Jimbo,
Kelly in Colorado.
Skip to the end because we're going to spoil the hell out of this thing.
You're fine, but if you haven't seen it, go see it and then come back.
It's been noted by our little bug spoilers thing, so if you listen from here on out, it's going to be your own damn fault.
There you go.
Yeah. So that said, let's talk about the movie.
All right.
All right. So what stuck out with you the most with what happened in the movie?
I was glad they kind of made him a hero. Was the big thing. I wasn't sure if they were going to go he's a menace or a hero.
That was unexpected for me. I did not expect
I thought he'd be, since it's kind of a first appearance, kind of, and story-wise, that he would be the menace.
I kind of was maybe thinking that that's what would happen when they started talking about in the previews the second monster, the Muto, which it's awesome. Gotta love the military. Massively unidentified terrestrial object is Muto, and that's awesome that they gave it that name.
And now there's a new monster in the canon of Godzilla monsters.
Yeah.
There's actually a couple, really, to be fair.
Oh, I didn't mention this before the spoilers, but I gotta tell you, one of the guys that reviewed it, Annie Cool, was at the premiere in Los Angeles at the Chinese Theater, obviously. And he was talking with the producer of the film, and then all of a sudden this Asian guy came up and said, This is the Godzilla of my childhood. And the guy was taken aback, and he was also kind of stunned. And the reviewer guy who was talking with him realized that the Asian guy that told him that was actually the president of Toho. So, compare that to, the shitstorm with 98, where, Toho guys came out of that movie and were like, this is not my Godzilla. This one, the Godzilla of my childhood. So, I mean, this shows you just how much they redeemed themselves with this one. But anyway, that aside, the Mutos was a very, very interesting take on monsters, really, in general.
It was interesting, and they were definitely monsters, which is cool. They were naturally occurring. They really weren't military created or anything. They were not a response to try to stop Godzilla, which I thought maybe was what they were going to do with this movie. But in this case, the real menace, and you start in the beginning and there's earthquakes and stuff, and you're thinking, oh, it's Godzilla coming.
But it's not.
It's not. It's a Muto.
And they explain it away with these Monarch Corporation. Well, I'll get to that in a second. Yeah. Where these scientists are studying this thing, and it ended up explaining away, retconning it to the fact way back in the 1954 movie that these were ancient monsters from long ago, and they either were awakened or they came back up or something happened where it woke them up. Godzilla was one of them, and these Mutos were another part. But what I liked about it is they had that scene in the Philippines where they had the Godzilla bones.
They found a Godzilla skeleton.
And the parasite Mutos nesting there, and that's how one of them woke up and escaped. So it was like they right away they established the fact that it was dangerous to Godzilla itself, because they already had offed one of them and lived off of it for a number of years, which I thought was really cool.
And the other thing I liked was that they said those weren't atomic tests in the South Pacific. Those were to get rid of Godzilla.
Oh! And it wasn't the French that did it.
No, it wasn't the French. It was the whole world kind of knew about it, just kept it quiet. Those weren't tests. Those were...
And that lended itself to the opening sequence where they had credits and it was redacted. But if you go to like some websites, you can find out what was redacted. And it was just silly. It was silly stuff. It's like screenplay by Bob Smith, blasts radioactive breath, and they just like blacked it out. So that was kind of cool. I like that a lot.
So the test, like, it's your atomic weapons that created them. Well, it really, in this case, they weren't. They were using it to try to stop them.
Yeah. So, and we also come to find out that all these prehistoric creatures actually fed off radioactivity, and that it was a time on Earth where radioactivity was more prevalent than what it is today. So it kind of limited itself, and I can't be influenced by these reviews because they read into so much of it. But like the Mutos feed off of radiation, and they feed each other off of it too.
And they keep going after warheads and just sucking them down like they're going out of style. So like they're like, all right, we're gonna have to nuke them, and then they're like, the scientists people are like, they feed off radiation, they're geniuses. And meanwhile, like they get a bomb and they're trying to get it to the Mutos, and the Mutos show up and eat it, or they take it to their. There's a big Muto who walks around, and there's a flying Muto, and apparently
it's a male and female, and they do a good job to where he makes you sympathize just a little bit.
Because you're like, well, they're natural creatures, and they kind of like nuzzle noses.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, oh, Veterinari's kind of like, I don't care, I want Godzilla to kill him.
Yeah. So we should pause a moment and talk about the human story, because this is where.
I didn't think the human story in this was that bad. I thought it was pretty good.
It was passable for me. I
don't think it was perfect by any means, but I think it was good enough. I think it was better than a lot of Godzilla movies, human stories. So.
I tell you what, though, we were duped as American audiences.
Yeah, I know exactly where this is going.
Bryan Cranston had most of the quotes in the trailer, and he was great. I would have loved to see him keep going.
I did get caught on that swerve. He bites it pretty quick.
They kill him off pretty early, and
he gets a decent.
Oh God!
I'm just thinking he gets a decent run to the point where you think he's gonna be in it the rest of the way, and then even when he kind of gets his mortal injury, you think, oh, he's gonna be all right, and then
because it's Aaron Taylor Johnson, or Kick-Ass, who ends up being a soldier. And he somehow finds his way.
Is that Kick-Ass?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why he looked familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's the son, and it's like 15. So 99 or 90 whatever, right? The first Muto escapes the hatchery from the Philippines and hits up this fictional Japanese town that has a nuclear reactor in it, right? Because it's gonna feed and.
It's burrowing up.
Ken Watanabe and this other French chick, are part of the Monarch Corporation. They're studying it, and what we find out is that they quarantined the whole thing off because they wanted to watch this thing grow. They wanted to figure out and study it, which is a good callback to scientists and the like from all the Godzilla.
So they said that the town's reactor went off and the town's radioactive. What happened is the Mutos sucked up all the radiation, so the town is not radioactive.
And that's what Bryan Cranston gets arrested for trespassing, and Aaron Taylor Johnson goes and bails him out, and then they go back again to go to this old family home because Bryan Cranston and his wife were in the original nuclear reactor when the monster attacked, and the wife died because they had to seal off the thing, and the wife was too slow, and his dad was Bryan Cranston was left with all that guilt of killing his wife that he had to find out what really happened.
He had to shut the door on his wife so the rest of the town wouldn't get irradiated.
And it was really a heartbreaking moment. It was really sad. All the scenes with Bryan Cranston in it were amazing. I loved it.
I thought he'd be the scientist throughout the movie, being like, "Let's study it."
And I was sad. I appreciated kudos to them for fooling me into think that he'd survived the whole movie. But when they finally killed him off, I was like, damn, they really did that.
Yeah.
And wow, that took a lot of balls. But, I think it also led to the fact the real star of the movie was Godzilla, even though he didn't show up until, really, the last half of the movie.
No, he didn't show up right away. You think he's coming from the beginning of the movie, but it's not him, it's the Mutos.
Yeah, that's another good swerve. They do a good job of swerving people.
You're thinking, okay, it's Godzilla coming to get them, and then you're like, no, not him. It's the kind of insect, giant kind of insect. Not quite insect. They're their own thing. It's a cool new monster. So they're kind of insecty, I should say. They have eggs. One flies, looks like a fly. The other one looks more, I don't know what to describe it like. But
So the one that hatched on that fake island was fed off the radiation, but Ken Watanabe, who we last saw him from The Last Samurai,
yep.
He's the Asian guy. He's the guy. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second.
You've seen him in a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah. And then the first guy, they study and they watch this thing grow, and then like at the last second, Bryan Cranston figures out what's really going on. At the last second, he they all figure it out, and of course it's too late. The thing hatches. Bryan Cranston dies. Aaron Taylor Johnson's hanging around. He's got to go home to Elizabeth Olsen and his kid, which nobody cares about those two at all. And he's got to find his way back, but they're in Japan right now, and the monster hatches and flies off pretty much. And that's when the shit hits the fan, because the kind of echolocation that they explain around also gets picked up by Godzilla. So it wakes up Godzilla, and Godzilla resurfaces and starts finding this flying beast. So it's that's where, like you were saying, that Godzilla was made the good guy in this movie.
He wakes up and he's following the path of this Muto. And it also should be noted that the Mutos, in addition to feeding off radioactivity, one of their attack things is they can throw out an electromagnetic pulse and turn off all electronics.
Yeah, EMP, which is it's a pretty good idea for this day and age, that they can EMP things and just be done.
And everybody doesn't know what to do without their marvelous technology. So, and it turns off motors and everything too, which is cool. So if you're in a car, you're fucked.
Yeah, they call it a bubble of influence, which I thought was kind of cool.
And it's kind of semi-temporary. It's just like if they kind of kick it out, you'll get jacked up, and then they stop for a little bit, but then they can re-kick one out anytime. So.
Yeah, and that's why it kind of helps explaining the fact that Aaron Taylor Johnson joined the military, and he's a nuclear bombs expert. So
he disarms nuclear weapons.
Yeah, so it'll come in kind of handy later on. So basically, yeah. So Godzilla wakes up and follows him, and there's like a little meeting in Hawaii, which is kind of cool. That's where the dog survives. The fucking dog survives.
I knew where they were going with that the second it happened. Dog's tied to a tree. I think Godzilla's coming out of the water, and
very iconic too. You get that big bellow push of water pushing up.
It causes a tsunami in Honolulu, so. Yeah. And the dog breaks free off his leash breaks, and he runs down the street and outruns a bunch of people, and we're just gonna assume he lives.
Was the tram in Hawaii?
The tram was at the airport in Honolulu.
Okay,
so and you get a tidal wave, but the Muto is there, and Godzilla's there, and power's out. There's a tidal wave. It's crazy.
So two things. One, Gareth Edwards kind of like teases you hard about the fighting. You see most of the fighting on TVs and in the background with everybody running around and stuff, and that's
almost like go to take a bite of one another, and then they cut away.
Yeah, that's the difference between this and like other movies, right? Like where you don't see the monster for a while. And then they have a massive fight at the end, or like ones where like Godzilla shows up and then gets defeated and then comes back and wins in the end. This one, they kind of like they're still kind of fighting, but it's kind of off in the background while all these people are doing this stuff, and that's a new interesting perspective that I'm surprised they haven't done yet for these movies. Is like it's in the background, but they're still fighting.
They were fighting in less populated areas in some cases, so.
And I think that's where people were disappointed. It was like, okay, they're fighting. Let me see them fighting. So, but I think the point he did then is it's like wrestling, right? You can't tease the face to win right away. You got to kind of draw it out and build that suspense and build that anticipation, and that's what he was doing. But what he did was build that in a different way, where you kind of see the fight, but it's off in the corner, and I just want more, right? I can't eat just one, so I'm not going to give you the whole can of Pringles. I'm just going to give you a little chip, and it just gives you so much more hungry toward the end that when the payoff happened, it was cool. So that was the first thing. The second thing was, and I don't know, Tim, did you catch this? On the tram. Do you know where I'm going with this first? Just completely out of the blue.
What, the little kid with the hat and the shorts?
Yes! Of course! It was such a great callback.
Yeah, a little Japanese kid in the shorts and the hat, ball cap, because that kid pops up in a lot of Godzilla movies.
Yeah, so they threw that in there. That was, as for you and me both, for somebody who went
That was a callback to the Godzilla movies, the old ones.
for 29 movies to see a little kid in a cap get lost and this guy take care of this little Japanese kid. That was primo. That was I appreciate it.
He gets back to his parents and everything's okay.
Yeah, the only reason they did that was just to kind of give a thumbs up to the fans of the movies.
It's like, there you go. Here's your Japanese kid with the hat.
And he wasn't that annoying.
No, but he's supposed to be kind of a brat who doesn't follow the rules because his parents are talking, like, wanting to stay put, and he jumps on the train to look at the guy's action figure, which sounds...
That sounds a little awkward, sir.
Anyway, so he gets on the train, and he's kind of an idiot kid, and then he's nice, and the guy's trying to help him, and the tram gets attacked by Godzilla. Not Godzilla.
No, the Muto. So they're fighting there, but then somehow Aaron Taylor Johnson rescues them.
All of Godzilla's damage is kind of just accidental, like because he's a giant monster.
Well, and that's the other thing. They also help point out that Godzilla's a good guy because he doesn't really acknowledge the humans. The Mutos get annoyed by humans very easily,
and they try to stomp them and eat them. And
yeah. So Honolulu happens, right? And then all of a sudden this other Muto wakes up in Las Vegas because that's where all the nuclear material... They took the other egg and they stored it in where all the other nuclear waste is.
I can't remember what the name of the mountain is off the top of my head now, but it's where they... I can't remember the name. It's a real place where they store nuclear waste out in Nevada.
Yeah. So obviously Vegas toasted. It was awesome because that big monster just ate all of Vegas, so that was cool.
Right down the strip, just tears it up. And good stuff there.
Yeah. So what we get is the flying Muto and the walking Muto are going to meet in San Francisco because they're going to mate and make more babies. And Godzilla is in hot pursuit to kind of just snuff all of them out.
He's heading right behind the one Muto coming in from the Pacific coast, and then there's one coming in from Nevada. He's cooking in. At some point, they're knocking out power all over the place, and they're going to try to nuke them still. And like they think the blast will kill them, even if the radioactivity won't. But they can't fly them in because all their planes will crash.
Yeah. So, but before we get there, right? San Francisco is also where Aaron Taylor Johnson's wife, Elizabeth Olsen and kid are at. So obviously that's where the human story is going to end up. And at this point, after Bryan Cranston died, I don't really care about the rest of these humans. So they're just kind of shepherding the monster fight along. So I can forgive that. But Elizabeth Olsen is like a nurse at some hospital, and the kid is just annoying. And you get some scenes with that, but it's like nobody really cares. They're just kind of furthering things along. When the Mutos show up on San Francisco and then Godzilla shows up over, of course. I swear, in any of these monster movies anymore, they just have to take out the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm getting a little bothered by that.
They have to take out whatever the most iconic structure in the city is immediately.
The iconic bridge in the water. And that's where Golden Gate went down in Pacific Rim. Golden Gate went down, I think, in the Doctor Who TV movie. Golden Gate went down in this one. It's like everybody, seriously, don't live in San Francisco.
Because if there's ever a giant monster,
sorry, John, but don't live in San Francisco because
if there's a giant monster, you're toast. So
yeah. So that's getting a little tiresome. But
anyway, it gets into the city.
Yeah. So that's what happens, right? The U.S. Navy follows Godzilla because Godzilla's swimming, which I appreciate. And the fins are out of the water where the review.
Kind of like swimming with the ships. It's kind of like, hey, here comes the cavalry, the Navy, and Godzilla.
Yeah, the Navy's just following them, and then some important actors, the Admiral, and Ken Watanabe's like, let them fight, don't try to blow them up. And
he's kind of gotten philosophical at this point. He's like, nature will restore balance.
Yeah. So he was there just kind of being that guy, and the admiral's there, and they're trying to figure out how to
You
like.
got to kill them. Well, let them fight. You know.
So this is where Aaron Taylor Johnson comes in again. So Aaron Taylor Johnson somehow gets to California, and they figure out that since it's an EMP, they can't do like an electronic driven timer for this bomb. So they have somehow this analog version where it's just a bunch of gears that counts down and blows it up.
It's a clockwork time bomb, basically.
Yeah, and only he knows it. So they set it up, and they put it on a train because train is like gas or steam driven. So they put a train to head it out there to put it on a boat to draw the monsters off 20 miles off the island to mitigate the damages. So when they do blow it up, they don't blow up a lot of people, but they're also going to lose some people, which again brings the whole like environmental kind of like war, nuclear radiation.
Okay, guys, like we can lose some people, or we can lose a lot of people.
So. Collateral damage, right? So he cons his way onto the thing, and of course, you know, it gets met by the walking Muto, and it goes completely wrong. So what happens is that they have some bridge over some cavern or whatever, and the Muto's there, and Aaron Taylor Johnson's the only one survive. Everyone else on the train dies, and the giant
Muto steals the warhead, one warhead, takes it with it.
And lays its egg in San Francisco for it.
It does, but the thing is, the hero sees it walk over top of him, and he sees it's got a big old belly full of eggs.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit! And anyway, he's kind of down. He falls down the river, and he ends up washing up, and he's still alive. And they take him to. They finally like get him to San Francisco. And he gets on the crew to go hunt around and try to walk the bomb basically to the.
And this is why they put that in the trailer, where they decide to do like a base jump off an airplane, and they had that score from Gregory Ligeti, and it was the same score from 2001. And they had the guys jump off the plane with little flares on their legs. And the red smoke, and having that in San Francisco, everything's so gray and black, and the red smoke coming down with that haunting score was just fantastic to see. That was one of the scenes in the movie that just gave me chills.
It was kind of like a thunderstorm going at the same time, and
so they make it. Some of them don't make it, but Aaron Taylor Johnson makes it.
They're basically like, you guys all got to jump out, and we have if you don't do this and you don't walk away, you're going to die. So we have no extraction plan. And when we jump out of the plane, some of you are going to hit buildings and die, and some of you won't.
Yeah. I mean, that's hardcore.
And so if you guys hit buildings and died, and then they didn't show you that, they just landed like, oh, we're missing Smith and Jones. And they're like, yeah, they hit buildings.
Yeah, they're dead. Let's go defuse a bomb.
And so they start like hoofing it to go. The bomb is now in the nest. It's going to feed all these eggs that they've laid in the
and this is the payoff. This finally we get to the point, right, where Elizabeth Olsen's somewhere surviving, and
it doesn't matter. They'll get reunited later.
Who cares about them, really? But this is the payoff, right? This is where, on the TVs we've seen, even like CNN's like King of Monsters, and you see all these little hints of what's really going on with these fights, right? Here's the payoff, right? It's the flying Muto, it's the walking Muto, and it's Godzilla, and they're just throwing each other into buildings, and it's awesome. It's really cool.
And good, tail action, if you're a fan of that in Godzilla movies, he's using his tail. A lot of flying around through buildings. Godzilla just keeps...
What did you think about the roar?
Roar, it's a little different, but it's still there. You can still hear it.
Yeah.
I still felt it recognized. Rebecca told me it was different. I was like, yeah, it is a little different, but it's not that different.
Yeah.
It's just louder. It's almost just louder. And
yeah. Well, you were in IMAX, too. I was a little disappointed about the speakers in my theater.
Yeah, the speakers in this one, the roar was pretty damn loud. It seriously, shook our seats, the roar.
That's the way it should be.
That was badass. And then, of course, it's like they smack him around a little bit. Then he gets the, like, I'm pissed off roar. Like, I'm Godzilla. Now I'm going to kick your ass.
What did you think about the design of Godzilla?
I think it's fine. It's 100 times better than 98, so it's,
Yeah, I think
a little more ripped.
Oh well, if you look at like the Millennium series, I mean, there's some crazy variations there.
I think I like him better than some of the Millennium versions.
Yeah, I like how they kept. There's a certain design with the neck about how it was a different kind of scale,
Yeah.
and then it kind of like there's a line coming down. I like that. Obviously, like his legs are gonna be super fat, and his tail's gotta be super big too. I like that too. I think the snout could have been just a little bit longer, but that's okay. He was pretty badass.
By the end, he looked like Godzilla to me, so.
Yeah, and yeah, so that was there. What happened next? Yeah, those guys, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the away team, right? They find the eggs and the nuclear bomb.
And so they got the bomb in there. They pull it down from the nest because it's kind of like feeding up into all the eggs they've laid.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to open it up and have him defuse it because he basically put it in there. And they can't. The case is kind of jammed shut. So they're like, okay, job 2 is to get on a boat and drive it out to sea.
Yeah, that's the extraction plan. The extraction plan was get the bomb on the boat and get to sea with it.
And then try to disarm it while you're doing it.
Or have it blow up 20 miles outside.
Either way, you take it out and die with it, or if you can disarm it, great.
Yeah. So while the fight's going on, which is pretty epic, it's pretty cool.
They give you a little bit of them hauling the bomb out.
Yeah. So, but there's one problem I had with that whole sequence of them going to get the bomb, and that's with everything all blown up and like the Muto like stamped down the area to build a nest, right? And there's this one part where they're like, hey, there's a door here. Let's like open the door up. But when you
There's like a cabinet that fell through there, and they open the door, and they're in the Muto's nest.
Yeah, but if you pan out, it's just like a door, and then everything else is open. It's so corny.
It's like you just walk around the door.
Yeah. So I hated that. But we come to find out inevitably what would actually end up happening, which is, of course, they couldn't do anything with the bomb, and of course they had to get it out on the boat.
But the one guy,
Aaron Taylor Johnson,
he realizes that there's like 1 million eggs, and they've got little Mutos in them, and he's like, I'm gonna crack open this gasoline tanker, and
burn the whole thing down.
Yeah. And so he goes ahead and lets it spill gasoline, and then he ignites it and gets out and goes and joins the people trying to get the bomb out of town.
And it ticks off that mother Muto so bad.
That's when you kind of have a little bit, it's like, hey, you just killed her kids, so.
Yeah. But in the meantime, while that's distracted, and this is where I talk about where the Mutos are a little more pissed off at the people, right? Because they get distracted by people and they want to stamp it out like little bugs and stuff like that. But Godzilla never does it.
They start chasing the little ground crew.
Yeah. But while the big Muto's doing that, Godzilla's fighting the flying one, and that's where the tail whip comes in. Because the tail whip sends that flying Muto against the building and impales and kills that Muto.
And you're like, all right. And so, because basically they were kind of teaming up on Godzilla and getting the upper hand, then they get distracted from the babies getting blown up. Big Muto goes off to change the people, then Godzilla finishes off the flying one. And now he turns attention to the big one.
Yeah, and that's when we get the breath.
And then you've been waiting for it the whole movie. You're waiting for it the whole time since you see Godzilla's like, is he gonna do the breath? Are his spines gonna light up? And
the way that they deliver that breath, and the way that the light kicks up, clack, 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 and then just like pow! It was so great. It was
blasts the shit out of the big Muto and gets it kind of into the bay water.
My wife can tell you, and that's part of the movie. My fist was like, yeah! I literally cheered out in the theater when that happened.
I thought people would too in mine, and they didn't. There was a very reverent crowd, I guess. There's like, oh. Maybe it's all the Japanese people. They're
very honorable. They're very respectful.
Well, I mean, they're not big, like, demonstrative. I think it's a cultural thing. I wonder if that was the case, because I didn't get a lot of...
Did you say demonstrative?
But he gets into the bay, and then which was, and there's fighting in between. It's good stuff, but he does this just a thing I'm not accustomed to seeing in a Godzilla movie. He freaking grabs Muto's mouth.
Well, now wait, hold on. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there. Because Aaron Taylor Johnson takes the bomb on the boat.
That's right.
And he's like, I don't know what I can do. They start going out to sea, and that's where the big monster follows them, right? And that's where it goes back to where it's like ants. Like the big Muto wants to stomp on ants, right? So there's these tanks and other people shooting at it, and it's just wasting its time, just stamping those out, right? And then it turns its attention to Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's got the bomb. Muto recognized Aaron Taylor Johnson as the one who burned all her babies up, which kind of made you feel a little bit sympathetic for him. But
he's kind of injured. He's got the boat on autopilot, heading out to sea. No,
and he's pretty much given up the fact that he can't disarm it, and then he's really going to be dying on this boat when the thing goes up. So, what happens next?
Since the thing's distracted, Godzilla gets up on it and grabs this Muto, and he's okay. They're gonna wrangle a little bit. He grabs the Muto's jaws and pulls it apart and just breathes fire straight down its throat. It's like, I'm gonna crap down your neck. And tears the head off the Muto and just tosses it aside, and it's done.
How awesome was that?
I was like, oh, he just burnt. First, he shot radioactive breath right down his gullet, and he tore its head off by the jaw. That
I've
roar at the end,
I've never seen a Godzilla movie finish like that.
He's just kind of all right, enough of this horsing around shit. Take this.
There was it wasn't Destroyer. It was what was the one with the spaceship? It was
There's one of them where he just breathes down something.
It was Megaguirus, right?
Yeah, I think it's Megaguirus. One of them he kind of gives up real close and just cooks him.
Well, no, there's one where he gets swallowed by. Oh, damn it! Now I gotta look it up.
Oh, he got swallowed by Destroyer.
No, that wasn't Destroyer.
Wasn't it?
No. I think it was Megaguirus. No, it was Millennium. It was Millennium, and it was Orga, right?
Okay.
So Millennium was the spaceship that mutated with the G cells into a monster, right?
And it tried to unhinge its jaw and eat him.
It unhinged its jaw like a snake, and then enveloped Godzilla. But then Godzilla's like, "Pow! Radioactive time bomb," and it just blew
inside you, and done.
So that was the closest thing.
That was closest, but this was a little more it wasn't like I got caught in his giant jaws. It's more like, open your mouth, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, there was no hesitation at all. That's what made it so awesome. It was just like, ka rip, funk, roar! It was awesome. It was pretty thorough. It was pretty good.
And so the kid passes out, and he starts to pass out, and the helicopter comes and gets him off the boat, and then it blows up.
He's in the helicopter, and he sees the flash of the atomic bomb. So I like that. I like how the atomic bomb went off anyway. So I like that.
Godzilla rips the head off, because they did beat up on him a little bit. He kind of passes out in town.
Yeah, they thought he died, too.
He kind of finishes off, roars, and then he just falls over into the city, and is just laying there, and you're just like, oh, he's dead. And it's like, I knew he wasn't dead.
Yeah, in the meantime, Aaron Taylor Johnson meets up with his wife. Everybody's happy.
And they're like, hey, look, here's this lizard. Everybody's taking pictures and studying. They're trying to clean up and everything. And he's dust and everything. And they're like, oh boy, look at this big giant thing. How can you believe this thing still, was here? And they're doing some shit, and then you just get a little, you get a snore out of Godzilla. He's like, what? What's going on? I was taking a nap. His eyes pop open, and he gets back up.
And then, obviously, the most common finish of all Godzilla movies.
I so appreciated this. I was like...
I was so happy when I saw it, too.
He's going to get up, and he's going to walk into the sea, and that'll be the end.
And that's exactly
He
what it
went into the
was.
sea, roared, and that was the end. Credits.
I was like, hell yeah, C finish 2014.
And they made sure to show you the TV footage of him walking out, and it says "Monster or Savior,"
The city savior, king of the monsters.
and he walks off into the sunrise, roars, and that's the end of the movie.
Man, if they ever do, like, if they do a sequel, I hope it's King Kong versus Godzilla, and I hope Godzilla beats the shit out of King Kong.
I hope that I like to. I hope they don't like try to do another one where he's like the bad guy.
The '98 movie was so terrible, but the next closest thing was the fact that King Kong beat Godzilla. It made me so angry. I hate that to this day.
I will be interested to see where they go with the sequel. I will be happy to see it. So.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how they opened themselves up for a sequel. He's just going out to sea, right?
They didn't kill him, and they've kind of like, hey, he kind of helped us, and
I don't think they could kill him. I mean,
they
really?
They were kind of like, it wasn't that they were like he helped us. It was more like he has no interest in destroying the cities. He just really wanted to get rid of those parasites that are kind of a natural predator to him.
Yeah, I mean, the humans, and that's the big point, is that the humans are not a factor at all in Godzilla. And,
Like, you couldn't stop me if you wanted to, you stupid people.
I think the people who didn't like the movie kind of couldn't get past that.
And it was great that they actually did have a Japanese presence in the movie, unlike the '98 one. They got a little bit of the not so much a lot of mystical, but a lot of there's balance in nature, like a Mothra.
So, speaking of which, one of the things that I noticed, I didn't notice this other thing, but one of the things, the Ken Watanabe and the other lady were under this corporation called the Monarch Corporation, which, of course, Monarch Butterfly. So that was one thing that could lead into something. Also, if you paid attention to the research papers that Bryan Cranston shuffled through in his own house, they didn't connect the dots too much, but there was like a piece of paper taped to another piece of paper that spelled out Mothra on it. So, maybe Mothra would be the sequel.
I don't know.
I would think that if you're going to do a sequel, you'd probably, I mean, if you want to do something, okay, so the 90s movies, the Millennium movies, the pattern followed that they introduced new characters, and then they worked in
Mothra.
Old ones, either Mothra, Mechagodzilla, something like that, right?
Or King Ghidorah, or...
Yeah, so if you were to do a sequel, and we're just spitballing here right now, if they were to do a sequel, it would, I would feel like that they'd almost have to do something that's a little bit more recognizable this time around, because
they would go new monster and Mothra is where I think they'd go.
Yeah, because there are mixed reviews. I like the movie. It's a Godzilla movie. It's obviously not the most perfect movie ever. I mean, this movie is great. I love this movie, but I mean, if I had a choice between this and say like, oh, I don't know, Star Wars or man, what's Phantom of the Paradise or like.
What about this versus
Battles?
What about this versus the Avengers?
This versus the Avengers. The Avengers was a better movie. I would choose Avengers over this. Because they didn't have to deal with any origin story. Although technically this wasn't much of an origin story here. But the Avengers was way more epic. But admittedly, I'm also invested in the Marvel Universe stuff now that I'm watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, yeah.
Perfectly. I felt fine spending the money on it. Good entertaining movie. I'd see the sequel in a second.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're going to recommend it, we already gave you the movie. Yeah. We already gave you the movie, and you should still go out and see it.
I think I might see it again yet. So
I might see it again too. Actually, I won't always see it without with contacts in.
I'll just go see it. It can be 2D and a little bit cheaper.
Hey, if it gives me another reason to do another Tequila Flight, then I guess I can do it. I mean,
I'll put that in the suggestion box in my theater.
But sequel-wise, there is good opportunity for sequel. A little bit. Whether they actually do Mothra, I don't know. I think this movie in and of itself is encapsulated to the point where it's a good movie. There's no obvious opens for sequels. Like there is no, as I texted you,
Yeah.
no post-credit scenes, no like Marvel bullshit where you have to.
All you get is that Godzilla's not dead.
That's all you get, and that's all you need for these kind of movies. That's all you really need.
Don't need these. Are just let him know that he's alive, and they can do something else with him if they want.
Yeah. So I guess we know a sequel's happening. I hope it's Mothra. It's probably end up being Mothra. And I would love to see Godzilla be the bad guy in this one, just to kind of really hit it home.
I think they could go for the second one. They could be something where he didn't quite go back to being dormant. He's running around doing stuff, and they're like, and we've got to figure like he's not entirely. He's just a big animal. So it's like, well, he's not destroying stuff. We've got to kill him. How do we kill him?
Godzilla's a force of nature, and it's neither good nor bad.
So it's like, well, now he's awake, and what are we going to do with him now he's awake?
Yeah, and of course, Mothra. Although I don't know if they could really, because this is kind of a realistic like universe.
That's what I mean, they may have to go some kind of, I don't know where they'd go with it. I think there has to be another monster or something. I don't know.
I don't know if it'd be hard to do Mothra because of the infant island and the twins. And the mysticism related to that.
You have to go down a mystic road. Well, I mean, you had Watanabe talking about balance in nature, so maybe there's somewhere you could do that.
Maybe they're just really tiny natural hippies, and they just like have grass-fed and vegan diets, and they're just like they smoke a lot. They smoke a lot of weed and a lot of like different drugs. They take mushrooms, and they're just like. By the way, Mothra.
I don't know how realistic they'll go. I think they're going to try to keep it semi-realistic. So.
Yeah, so I would love to see Mothra, but I also would be interested to see how they explain that away. So, anyway, I think the point is, I think we're both in agreement. If you like Godzilla movies, if you stuck with us through all of this, this is Epidose 11. You should go see this movie.
And maybe see it a second time.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, as for what happens in the future, who knows? We'll find out. But I think the 2014 Godzilla really encapsulated all that was great. Also, a little bit all that was bad about Godzilla movies.
Yep.
So it was perfect in the sense of it being a Godzilla movie, and I think if you are a fan of those kind of movies, you should see it. If you're not a fan or if you haven't seen those, this is a pretty good movie to get introduced with. Because
it's still a pretty good movie if you're not even familiar.
So. Yeah, because then you can go back to the 54 Godzilla, read the subtitles, kind of like, there's a lot more human drama.
If you watch 54 and you watch this, you'll get it. So.
Yeah, I don't want to get too crazy, but there are, again, Star Wars. There are certain ways of watching the Star Wars series of movies that people have come out with, where they dump a movie, they make you watch like A New Hope, and then the two prequels, and then like Empire and Return of the Jedi. People have convoluted ways of watching these series of movies. Now, I don't know if you really need to do that with Godzilla, but what I would say is you could probably get away with watching the Millennium series first and kind of getting that out of the way, and then kind of like bellow yourself into the Showa series, but you might want to stop it off around Mechagodzilla and then finish it all off with the Heisei series, which had better continuity, which might bleed in better to this. So, that's just my opinion of like the order to watch 30 movies.
Really not that Star Wars series you're referring to is called the Machete Order.
Yeah.
Because you cut out part of it, but there's not really a Machete Order for Godzilla. But
no, you can get rid of Terra Mechagodzilla. You can get rid of that.
You can get rid of that, and you can probably, unless you want to see it just for silly's sake, you can get rid of Son of Godzilla or.
Yeah. So I mean. If Godzilla 2014 is the movie that introduced you to the entire series, watch the 54 version first. Personal favorites, Final Wars, any of the Mechagodzilla movies, really.
Mecha ones are good.
Broya is amazing. Biolante,
Godzilla versus Monster X is fun. It's kind of goofy, but it's fun.
and you got to get a couple of Mothra movies in there because Mothra is important in the
Destroyer
canon.
is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So that said, Tim, you got anything else to say about the Godzilla series?
No, I enjoyed it. I'm fully entrenched in it now, and I like this one a lot, and I liked a lot of the other ones amongst the other 29. There's a few I don't care for, but it's a small group I don't care for. All the rest of them, I'm really considering buying a full collection of these movies.
Well,
Because I saw them, I definitely want to go back and watch again. So.
that said, of course, I mean, this was, I got to thank Tim for the 10, the 12, 11 weeks that we did all this because, I mean, this was something that I really wanted to do. I was going to do anyway, and I figured we'd do something in Gonzo Guys to kind of like, you know, show our work. And because I mean, I'm a nerd, and I like watched all the Doctor Who episodes before the 50th one, and I went and I saw that out in Dallas. I drove to Dallas to watch it, and I was gonna like, okay, I'm gonna do this because I know Godzilla's coming up, so I'm gonna watch all the movies again. I don't know if I'll ever do it again, but
My favorites, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Gonzo Guys material because of a lot of reasons. You know, my childhood, which we talk about a lot on the Epidoses, if you listen to the podcast, and you should if you don't. But also, Mystery Science Theater 3000 featured some of these Epidoses, these movies, and because of that, it led me into Mystery Science Theater 3000, led me into Gonzo Guys. So we kind of went through that before. So it's a special thing for me in my heart. And it was a fantastic ride for the last 11 weeks, or 10. I lost count. But
we'll be back in a couple of years with the sequel.
Yes, exactly. We will review the next Godzilla sequel, but in the meantime, Tim, I gotta let you know, I did buy something yesterday.
What did we buy?
I doubt that we're gonna do it, but I did find on sale at Amazon.com the Gamera Legacy Collection.
Oh, Jesus.
For under $10.
Oh, how many Gamera movies are there?
That would be 11.
Holy crap, that's more than I gave old Gamera credit for.
Now that said, I don't know if I necessarily want to, because word goes around that the 90s Gamera trilogy is really all you really need to see.
Yeah.
But I got all 11 of them. There, it's going to be in the mail. Actually, I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. So maybe we'll have another Kaiju movie series to go over. But
maybe before the sequel comes out.
I almost like to think that we've done our movie series already. I think either you or John should pick another movie series.
I've got a couple I'm considering. I'll have to announce that later, though.
I mean, really, because, I mean, who has done retrospective of, say...
A 30-movie set.
Yeah, okay, so that said, Godzilla, 30 movies, more than James Bond.
That's nuts. It's a huge series of movies.
That's why...
Whatever series I pick is going to be substantially dwarfed. I mean, be dwarfed.
It's so iconic, and it's not American. That's the interesting thing, the Gonzo thing about it.
But it's a lot of movies to watch in that span of time.
Yeah, but who knows? You know, we could do the Friday the 13th.
Oh, no, yeah, there's something with a smaller number of movies with no real deadline is going to be a little bit easier. But we were up against the premiere date, and we really cranked them out and watched movies a lot of our free time.
Yeah, it was tough. I think we...
we enjoyed the movies, but it's a lot of time. So.
Well, most of the movies, because of that stupid-ass...
Well, some of them suck, but...
Although, admittedly, I do have to publicly apologize to you, Tim, because I shoehorned the 98 movie into this.
That should be excluded.
And I took full responsibility for that.
If that's being preserved somewhere, it should all be destroyed.
Yes. So, that said, it's been a wild ride. Google's been crappy, actually. but we are done. We may do another video series soon.
Well,
But if we don't, podcast, Podbean, gonzoguys.podbean.com.
Facebook, fan us on Facebook page, like us at Gonzo Guys on Twitter. We do contests, we give away shit, we watch really bad movies. It's a lot of fun.
We put poetry about the movies on our website.
There's blogs on the page. There might be a new feature on the page at some point about girl drinks. We don't know.
But there is a series of Uncle Mike's fart book, which would be not from me, but from somebody else who was an uncle. So there's a book series of farts on our tasty web blog.
There's all kinds of stuff over there. One day we might get in the vault and get out our old video doses from back in the early days. So.
Yes, I think if anything, we should at least uncover and rediscover Las Vegas Bloodbath. But that's particularly me.
That's a good one. So we have several back from our early days. Anyway, go check all our stuff out. And I'm not kidding. You really can't win stuff. We do it. So.
You said do.
Ding do. We ding do it.
And with that, I think we're gonna do our way out of here.
We done.
That is correct. Until next time, folks.
Roar.
Why didn't Godzilla do the celebratory dance in that movie, by the way?
No. You know what? I would have forgiven it.
I'm not disappointed about that.